Hi everybody, it is me, Justina again, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about this week's reading. Um, this week's reading is on the longer side, therefore, sorry, I'm shaking the computer. Therefore, I did not do any historical context, and I didn't have you do a historical context exam or quiz, the multiple choice quiz this week. This week's reading is actually talking about some stuff we're kind of growing upon that we've talked about in the past. We had a couple of weeks ago where we read about Native Americans, and we've watched a couple of those crash courses on Native American and colonist, both the Spanish and the English, and their relations with Native Americans, right? And so we're going to be building on that historical information that we've already learned, okay? So you're going to get some context also in the reading, so don't feel alarmed by not having any historical context this week. I just wanted to give you a little less work because the reading is longer. So there are two links for the readings. You need to read them both, okay? I'm going to show you what they look like here. One is this background. It is from a a textbook we've worked with before, and you're going to get some background on the journal article, and then you're going to have to read the actual journal article. And this is not a short journal article. Journal articles can be on the shorter side. This one's not that short, so I want you to make sure you have time and you have given yourself enough time to actually read the whole thing. Okay, so what is this about? This is an article entitled Biological Warfare in 18th Century North America Beyond Jeffrey Amherst. Okay, so, and it's written by historian Elizabeth Fenn, which you can learn a little bit more about in the bio information underneath in a footnote. But important thing, so what is biological warfare, right? Biological warfare is a term that we typically use with more modern wars, like the Vietnam War. We talk about Agent Orange, which was a biological or a method of biological warfare. It is essentially using different kinds of weapons that utilize biological entities, okay? And in this case, we're talking about smallpox, okay? So we have already learned about how diseases decimated Native American populations across the Americas. South America, North America, Central America, all across. Decimated. Actually, if you remember from the Crash Course video, he said decimated and then said it was incorrect because it was even more, because decimated is 1 in 10, and it was an even greater portion of the population that was killed by diseases, Native American populations. Okay, so we know that, right? But historians have debated whether or not colonists actually used diseases like smallpox to fight wars, and they would purposefully send blankets. That's the famous kind of piece of evidence, that they would send blankets that were infected by diseases, specifically smallpox, to the other side as helpful supplies, and then that disease would spread rapidly, killing off many, many, many Indians, okay? So she is participating in this debate amongst historians, okay? And when we think of history, sometimes we think of these concrete facts. Well, this article is going to show you how that is not accurate. Historians use primary sources and facts, but they use them and they read them and they make their own interpretation when they're writing history, okay? So we have to remember, when we're reading secondary sources like journal articles and books written by historians, that these are their personal interpretations of the facts that they've read, okay? They're not trying to put in biases. It's part of the historical discipline that we attempt to remove our biased opinions, but it's inevitable because we are humans. That we will have some biases and that our interpretations will change amongst each other, okay? So when you're reading this, there's also something called historiography, okay? And this is a bit of a confusing concept, but historiography is essentially the history of history, right? If you study history, there's many books written about the Civil War, right? Hundreds, thousands of books written about the Civil War. So and the way that it's written about changed over time. And so we call that group of books and those historians that participated in these huge library on the Civil War, the historiography of the Civil War. So it's how the history of the Civil War has been written by historians, okay? It's a lot of history involved. But within historiographies, historical debates emerge, okay? So one of the debates that emerges that we see in this piece is this question of, was biological warfare actually used in the 18th century by colonists to infect Native Americans and then kill off major portions of their population? Were they actively using this with intent to kill as a method of war? Okay, and this has been questioned by a number of different historians, which you'll get to hear about in her piece. And she is taking a specific stance within that debate. So when I ask you what is her thesis, what is Fenn's thesis, you're going to answer with where she sits in that debate and where she is arguing for or against that debate. Okay, and you need to also realize that this is a long-standing debate that many people are participating in. Okay, and so she is going to present evidence that she believes proves her thesis, and which is that side of the debate. Okay, so when we think about reading secondary sources, we need to remember that it's written by a historian who is looking at lots of facts and lots of primary sources, but it is still an interpretation, and so we can't take it as perfect fact. We should always be questioning our secondary sources to see if you think that they're right or they're wrong. And by the end of reading this article, I'm going to ask you whether or not you believe Fenn and agree with her, or if you disagree with her, okay? And when you answer that, I don't care which way you answer that, but you have to think about why you believe her or why don't you. What piece of her evidence makes you think, yeah, she's definitely accurate? The way she's interpreting the facts shows that she is accurate. Or no, I think that she's interpreting these primary sources incorrectly and therefore is not correct. Her thesis is inaccurate, and you need to tell me why. Okay? So remember, think about the history that's written as forms of interpretations created by historians, and that you, as a working historian in this class, need to constantly be questioning whether or not you feel that historians are accurate in the way that they're interpreting the facts or not, okay? So please don't forget, this is a long reading, so take your time, give yourself enough time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or come to my office hour, which has changed permanently. My office hour will now be, again, it's going to be on Tuesday every single week, but it's going to be from noon to 1, okay? So please, and if you can't make that, please, I want to remind you again, I'm very happy to meet with you at another time. We just need to set up an appointment, okay? Have a wonderful week, and I hope you enjoy learning about biological warfare in the 18th century. Bye.